Hey guys! So Skyrim is almost out. Of course, there are some lucky bastards out there that do have Skyrim already. Um, but what I'm going to talk about in this video, I'm going to talk about the races, finally. This is going to be a pretty important video because it really will give you an idea of, especially if you're new to the Elder Scrolls universe, it'll give you an idea of what race to choose because there's 10 races that you could choose. I haven't watched any of the gameplays that are out there right now, any of the walkthroughs that people are putting up from Skyrim for these people that have the game already. I haven't watched any of it, so this information is still what we knew before the game, before people had the game, so before today. I'm not including anything from those recent gameplays. So if you're like, oh, there's going to be spoilers in there, this is just stuff that has been out for a long time. It's nothing new because of the walkthroughs that are out right now. So, yeah. Okay, so let's jump right into this. Basically, in the Elder Scrolls universe, there's two types of races. There's the humanoid races, and there's the beast-like races. The humanoid races are basically split up into two. The humans and what's called the mare. And the mare are the elves. And I'm going to say this again. I said this previously. If I butcher any of these names, I'm really sorry. But some of these names are really hard to pronounce. So I'm pretty sure it's pronounced mare or mer. I'm going to call them the mer. Now I'm just going to say the mer right now because everything else, because afterwards I'm going to call them the elves because I am so confused as to how to pronounce that. If it's mare or mer. Muscle spasms. The mer are the elves and then the humans. But when it comes to the elves, there are the Altmer, these are the High Elves, the Bosmer, these are the Wood Elves, the Dunmer, these are the Dark Elves, and the Orzamer, these are actually the Orcs. Yes, they are a type of elf. So those are the elves, those are the Mer. Now there are other races that I'm not going to mention because I'm just going to mention the races that you could choose from in Elder Scrolls. There are more, but you don't get to play them in the Elder Scrolls. So I'm just going to go over the ones that you could play. And then the human races are the Breton, the Imperial, the Nord, and the Redguard. And then the beast races are the Khajiit and the Argonian. The first section I'm going to talk about are the elves. I'm going to group them all together. So I'm going to talk about all the elves, and then I'm going to talk about the humans, and then I'm going to talk about the beast-like creatures. First, let's start with the High Elves, or the Altmer. The Altmer are one of the oldest races on Tamriel. They are actually direct descendants. Now, all the elves are are descendants of the Aldmer, but the Altmer are the closest descendants, ancestors, to the Aldmer. And the Aldmer were very traditional elves. The Altmer consider themselves like the pure descendants, not just in bloodline, but also in their culture, in just the way that they act. They really want to keep the traditions and the religion and all that of their ancestors, the Aldmer. So the High Elves are the closest to the Aldmer. Their name pretty much describes the way that they are, High Elves. They're a very proud race. They're from Somerset Isle. I don't know if you guys remember this little map that I drew in one of my in the first Elder Scrolls video that I did. This is Somerset Isle, that little island right there. That's where the High Elves come from. They're probably one of the tallest humanoid races. Their skin is almost like a golden color. But they're not like that dark gold. They're a pale gold. But they're not as they're a lot pale. They're not as pale as some of the human races, but they are a lot more pale than, say, Bosmer or the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves are a little darker in skin color. They're slender, they have very pointy ears, and they have almond-shaped eyes. Since they're smaller build than a lot of, like, say, the human races, they're not as strong, and because they're so tall, they're not as agile either, like, say, the Wood Elves, but they are the strongest race on Nirn for magic. They're one of the most intelligent races on Tamriel, and they're the most magically inclined. A lot of races on Tamriel follow their template of religion. Like I was telling you about their magical inclination, their aptitude for magic. That it even surpasses the Bretons, if you know anything about the Bretons. If you don't worry, I'll be talking about them. The Bretons are very strong in magic, but the High Elves are actually even stronger than the Bretons. But because of, remember I was saying that they want to be as pure of a race when it comes to them being the ancestors of the Aldmer. To have this pure lineage, they have to be really careful with breeding. So they've kept breeding pretty much to themselves. They don't mix. They keep it very pure within their race. So because of this, they have a strong resistance to disease. And this plays out in the game. They have a resistance to disease. But because they have a connection with Magnus, if you saw my Divines Elder Scrolls, they have a connection, like almost a direct connection with Magnus, the god of Magicka. They have strong magic abilities, but they also are prone to magic attacks. So they are also weak against certain elements, certain magic attacks. But it makes up for their weakness towards, it's kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to the High Elves, but they do have a very high resistance towards disease. So like I was talking about in my Divines Elder Scrolls video, the Altmer, the High Elves, they pretty much worship the Aedra that left the creation of Nirn, because the High Elves, I was saying that the High Elves and some other elf races kind of hate Lorcan, especially the High Elves, because they pretty much lost their divinity because of him. So all the Aedra that left the creation of Nirn, that were making out of the 9 divines, the ones that left, those are the ones that the High Elves really worship, because they were the ones that were like, screw this, I don't want to give up my divinity. Everybody else that stayed, all the other Aedras, the High Elves are kind of like, it's because of these fools that we lost our divinity. So their name pretty much Altmer translates to high ones or cultured ones. Some people see them as being snobbish because of how proud of a race they are. But it's not so much that they're snobbish. They're proud. They're trying to keep the teachings of their ancestors alive. And if they don't, then there are no other races that are so close to the Aldmer, the first, their ancestors. So they are pretty much considered one of the most civilized races on Tamriel. And not just because they say so, but also because it's pretty difficult to argue with that. Even human races can't argue with it. They're so traditional and civilized and in their culture that no other race really comes close to that type of tradition. So that was a little bit of backstory on the Altmer, or the High Elves. Now let me just give you a few skill bonuses and special abilities that the Altmer will have in Skyrim. The skill bonuses for the Altmer are, they start off with plus 10 illusion. All of the Altmer skills are for your, there's no classes in Skyrim. You don't choose a class, but you choose a play style. You choose how you want to play. And the Altmer are the best if you want to be like a full-on mage, because they have all of their skill bonuses are for magic. They're all for mage playstyles. So illusion, they get plus 10 illusion, and illusion is it's what benefits the spells like frenzy. They've showed this on one of the Elder Scrolls demo. The guy uses frenzy, and what that does is it sends like an enemy like running towards another enemy, and they fight each other. So spells such as frenzy, silence, and spells that you cast on yourself, like invisibility and night eye, you can see in the night. They also start with plus 5 alteration. Alteration is stuff like detect life, like you could detect where enemies are. Others are telekinesis, water breathing. They also start with plus 5 conjuration. This benefits spells such as summon flame or frost, raise zombie, stuff that has to do with summoning. Plus 5 destruction, and these are your spells, like your elemental spells like blizzard, flame, fireball, frostbite, lightning bolt, that type of thing. Plus 5 enchanting. Enchanting is the mage's crafting skill. And then plus 5 restoration. And restoration benefits like your healing spells and your like protection type of stuff. And then they have so far we know about these special abilities that they have. Their special ability is that they could regenerate magicka faster for 60 seconds. And also the High Elves are born with 50 extra magicka. And this is all called Highborn. The Highborn special abilities. So they're mostly, so the Altmer, if you want to play a hardcore mage, Altmer is the best if you're talking about skill bonuses and that type of thing.